The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Joanne Mercier. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Dom. Hi, everybody. Glad to be back.
And Father Corey Stika. Hi, Father Corey.
How's it going, Dom?
Very well, thanks. So, Joanne, the next time you're on, we're going to talk about your cord-cutting adventures. You've just recently gone through a major cord-cutting exercise, and I'm sure you have lots of lessons learned that you'd like to share with us and with the audience.
Yes, and I still have the scars to prove it.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. But that's for the next time you're on, because we want to make sure we get all that together. But this time we have some interesting topics that are very topical, very much in the news. The first one I want to bring up is this one that I'm sure you've heard of. It's related to all the events going on in Hong Kong. The short form of this is that Hong Kong used to be a British protectorate. About 20 some odd years ago, it passed from Britain's control to China's control, and China had promised that they could continue to have their freedoms and laws and that sort of thing. But in recent years, they've been pushing that a little bit, and so there's these new proposals of laws that would curtail some of those freedoms, and lots of the people in Hong Kong are protesting. I don't want to get too much into the details of all that. That's not really a tech related part of this. The tech part of this is how some American companies in particular have been kowtowing, that might be an unfortunate use of the word, but have been sort of bending to the will of the communist leaders in Beijing to appease them. China is a huge market. 1.1 billion people, I think it is. Even if you have the top 10%, that's still people who can buy Western technology. That's still as much as the American market. Yeah, still a lot of people. So there have been a couple instances, and I'll just kind of throw them out there, of American companies, doing the bidding, shall we say, of Beijing. First one was Blizzard, the software company, the game company. They have World of Warcraft and some other games. So they have an esports team
tournament.
Tournament. And one of the players is from Hong Kong and was vocally supporting what was going on in Hong Kong. And so Blizzard, at the behest of Tencent, which is a minority owner of Blizzard, banned this player and then held his prize money that he already won this year. They later relented on the prize money, but they banned him from their esports tournament.
And for a year, he cannot play for a year.
Right.
And this is in Hearthstone. This is their Hearthstone Pro tournaments, which is a huge moneymaker for Blizzard.
Yes.
People pay good money to go see these tournaments. It brings people to Hearthstone. I mean, and Blizzard makes a lot of money off of Hearthstone.
Yes, it is a huge part of their of what they make money on. And both employees of Blizzard and customers have freaked out. I mean, I think rightly so. I mean, what do you think first, just off the bat? I mean, is Blizzard at all justified in this? I mean, given what they have a minority owner. I mean, was this an overreaction?
Well, they said that it made them look bad. It tarnished Blizzard's reputation.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry. The only reason why it tarnished Blizzard's reputation is because they did not want to tick off China.
Right.
Because their reputation was tarnished as soon as they responded to this guy everywhere else in the world.
Right.
I mean, I watch a little bit some of the kind of the gaming world, and there's a lot of people who are involved in these online games like Hearthstone or Magic Arena or World of Warcraft, is another Blizzard one, and they're very upset with how Blizzard responded.
Yeah. And I mean, frankly, a lot of players have Blizzard has been on the watch list for a lot of players because they've been upset about other things the company has done. They've made some sort of strange, almost user hostile, customer hostile moves in recent years. Mm-hmm. So this just doesn't help. So let's move on to the one that's probably the biggest one right now from the tech point of view was Apple. So it's kind of a strange case. So here's what happens. There was an app in the App Store and in the Google Play Store too, but in the App Store called HK Map Live. And what it did was it allowed people to in Hong Kong to see where a police event was going on. It didn't. It didn't show that there are particular police here. It didn't. It just kind of said in a general zone that there is something happening here that you might want to avoid, which makes sense. Like if there's an accident or a criminal investigation where streets are closed, you want to avoid that sort of thing. And so that was on the app, and it was being used by some people to find out where the police were and avoid them. And some thought it was being used to for the protesters over there to avoid police, and give them some quality intelligence on what was going on so that they can maneuver about. So China had their state-run news agency suggested that Apple was breaking the law by being accomplices to the protesters, or rioters as they call them. And so the next day, Apple pulled the app, and people were upset that they bowed to censorship. They put the app back. They took it out. Tim Cook, the president and CEO of Apple, said he had a memo that he sent out to the company that the app was being used maliciously to target individual officers for violence. But as I said, that wasn't how the app doesn't show where individual officers were. He said it was being used to victimize individuals and property where no police are present. Again, it doesn't show where all the police are. It just shows where where there's a concentration of a police event or police activity, and it doesn't violate any local laws in Hong Kong, as Tim Cook claimed. So, there are several other companies. Google, had some things that came up, and the NBA was a separate case. So here's the question that kind of is at the root of this. There are two questions. How should we react as consumers, and as perhaps as you even go further, as Catholic tech consumers who want to act morally, and what should the companies do? Should they follow the American values of democracy and freedom, or should they obey foreign laws in order to safeguard their ability to be present in these markets and stay healthy as financially? What do you think? So let's talk about the consumer. What do we do as Catholics, moral Catholics who, in response to what these companies are doing? What can we do?
That is such a good question. And I'm not sure if my fumbling with this answer might help, but I think we cannot assume that they play in China or in Hong Kong by the same rules that we play in America. So we don't know if pulling the app was better for them than it would be to leave it in. Okay? We don't know because we're not there. We have people telling us, but we're having both sides telling us the same thing. Better
let me clarify, better for the Hong Kong protesters?
Yeah. Okay. Because in America, in America, our news isn't as censored. It may be slanted, but it's not censored yet.
Right.
And we still get a multitude of information where they're only getting filtered information. So we don't know if by using this app, people were being targeted. I mean, I assume this app could probably be like what we use Waze, where things are in a general place, but nothing specific.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
Waze will say there's a cop, you know, that there's police ahead, but you don't know exactly where.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it might even be less specific than Waze. I mean, it's sort of a heat map, as from what I understand, because I'm not in Hong Kong, so I don't have access to the app. But from what I understand, it's more of a heat map idea where it's this area, this neighborhood, this intersection has something going on. But it certainly doesn't. It doesn't show you where every policeman is, which is why would the Hong Kong police even give that information out? The only way to get that would be from them. So it doesn't let you say, oh, there's no police over here, so I'm going to go commit a crime. There's no guarantee that there aren't police there. But also, it doesn't show you where individual police officers are. It just says there's something happening here. There's something happening there.
Right. But if people are in possession of this app and they're taken into custody, things could go worse for them if they have it rather than if they don't.
Yeah.
So some people could make the argument, well, if we don't give them access to it, we help to keep them safe. Okay. Yeah. As opposed to we're, freedom of everything. And yes, they should have the right to have this app. But that's not always how other people think. And, in other places, Americans want to think that way. But sometimes we shouldn't have some of the things we have, too.
That feels almost paternalistic, saying,
I know,
it's better for you if you don't have access to this tool that you use for your freedom. That's not very different from what happened at Lexington and Concord, frankly.
I realize that, but I'm trying to think of it in an otherworldly mind rather than an American one. I'm trying to think of what would make things better or worse over there. I don't think Apple or any company is trying, well, maybe some of those companies are trying to make their money and do whatever, China says. But I think there's also the good side of people that are saying, I want to keep people safe. I want to keep, things from escalating. So I'll try to dial back on some stuff, call it paternalistic, call it whatever. But I think, it's a tough line. We're not there. We don't know what is actually happening. That's about the best answer I can give.
What do you think, Father Corey?
Well, I first of all, we've talked before about, like, with Facebook and their censorship or their controls that, why are these companies even being put in the position to make these decisions? And I would argue kind of an answer to Joanne, why is Apple being put in this position? But, the fact is, it's ironic, especially that it's Apple that is the one that is taking the heat for this, because Apple is always the forefront of the so-called social justice issues, the human rights issues, especially with sexuality and things like that. But then this is a human right issue, at least as it appears on the outside, that these protesters are just trying to protect their human right to freedom of speech.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And which we as Americans view as an inalienable right that China or no one else can take.
Right.
And yet Apple is quick to yank it, because not just is China a huge market for Apple, Apple could not make the profits on the iPhone and the iPad they do without China. If they tried to make those devices elsewhere, they would not make anywhere near the profits. They could still make a profit even if it was made here in the United States with $15 an hour workers and so on. They still could not make the profits, though, that they make in China, because they make those phones for next to nothing.
Well,
and that's including the shipping to get it over here.
Part of it is one of the reasons why all these companies do business in China is because that's where all the parts are made. And are made in China and in other parts of Asia. You want to build it, this. You don't have to have the stuff flying all over the world. You have it going, shorter distances. And in the U.S., we don't want them building lithium-ion batteries or graphite batteries here because of the pollution. And there's a whole lot we turn a blind eye to, and we're okay with it happening in China to those people. So,
it's also well documented that Chinese workers make nothing compared to American workers and Western European workers.
Right.
They get paid a pittance, and that's a regular, especially with Foxconn, the big name that that Apple works with. So that's also a big issue of it. And you ask, like, what should we as consumers do? We need to make sure our displeasure is known to these companies and try to figure out how we can make it hit their pocketbooks.
Right. Well, it's interesting to me that in the midst of this, there's a trade war that's at the political level between the U.S. and China, and Apple has suddenly decided maybe we should be making, say, the Mac Pro here in the U.S. instead of in China. They used to make the last generation of Mac Pro, the trash can Mac, in Austin, but because they could afford to, because it was so expensive, they could still have their margin on it. But now they're thinking maybe we should be doing that again because things are going to get tough on us. So it's a difficult balance they have to make, because if you don't do business in China, it is a serious crimp in your ability to you have to rearrange and change your entire business model. That's every tech company. It's not just that it isn't a market anymore, but you can't make your stuff there anymore, and that changes everything. And that would be a serious issue for a lot of these companies. So they bow to the pressure. Sometimes I find it a little ironic. I don't want to get political, but I find it a little ironic how easy it is to criticize American society and American governments and American laws and American culture because you don't get the same kind of official backlash and pressure that you get in China, where they it seems that they buckle a lot easier. That's my point of view.
Mm-hmm.
But I take your point well, Father Corey, is that as consumers, we need to, not only do we need to be aware of the moral effect of the products that we buy, on the people who make them for us, we have to act in such a way. Like, I mean, you can't buy a phone that isn't made in China. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, I don't know of a single major phone that's not made in China, but we need to be active in voicing to these companies, but maybe by becoming shareholders or, telling the mutual funds that our IRAs are in, the mutual fund companies, that you should be more active in pushing them or something. But we need to be very active in voicing how the rights of these people should be respected. So, okay.
Yep. All
right, let's move on to our second topic today. This is an interesting one. A lot less visible than the first one. But the question that comes up is, do we need to worry about our selfies giving away too much information about us? So here's what happened, and it's kind of a little scary story. This in Japan, this Japanese pop star she was attacked, sadly, by a stalker, and it turns out that he was able to find her, or where she lived, and what route she walked every day from the train station to her home, and even where her apartment was in her building by using her selfies. Like any young, 21-year-old, especially who's a celebrity who needs to have a public visibility, she takes a lot of selfies, and he would use her selfies and not only see the landscape around her in the background, but would sometimes use the reflection in her eye of the selfie of the area around her to see where she was. He used things like, so he would use that reflection to match to bus stops and other scenery, or in stores and that sort of thing. He was able to look at reflections in her eyes of her curtains in her apartment, her windows, and the angle of the sun to guess what floor she lived at in her building, what floor she lived on. Yeah, they're talking about using your evil genius for evil.
Yeah.
It explains something to me, and because sometimes I can be technically dense, but our pictures right now have a lot of metadata to begin with.
Yes.
Do you need to go through all of that iris, scanning and blowing things up and trying to figure things out? Can't you just get that off the metadata?
Well, it strips it if you the metadata is stripped routinely. Things like location is stripped out of the photo when you upload it to, say, like an Instagram or Facebook. That's why they want to use your phone's location. Like Instagram asks for permission to use your location, because they can't get it off of the photo. They're not taking from the photo.
Because I was going to say, this is a lot of work, to go through all that.
Right. No. Yeah. No. That would be that's what people used to use until they started stripping that out.
Okay.
And so I kind of combined that with this idea that our phones are making ever better photos. And, just for example, the new iPhone 11 with Deep Fusion, it gives more detail than ever. And in fact, I have a link here to a story about this one guy who did some comparisons of this deep fusion versus non-deep fusion photography, where he goes right into his eyeball. Like he zooms in, takes a selfie, and then zooms in on his eyeball, and you can see how sharp it is. It's very clear what you're seeing. And I saw when I put these two stories together, I say, oh wow, like this is a question. Do you think we need to worry about this? Is this something that the average person needs to be concerned about?
I think it's something people need to be aware of, because I mean, of course, we enjoy the fact that all of our phones, I mean, it doesn't matter, even like my 3-year-old Pixel, which we'll talk about that in a little bit later in the next item, but it takes absolutely phenomenal photographs. And I mean, I've taken photographs where I've zoomed in on it, and it might not be as pixel sharp as what you see in this post, but again, this is a 3-year-old phone, which at the time was the top of the line camera. And the cameras just keep getting better and better, and the optics keep getting better and better. And more importantly, the processing of the pictures after it enters the phone keep getting better and better. Both Apple and Google have put a lot of time into making their devices absolutely phenomenal for being able to take a picture and clean it up in a way that's incredible.
Well, I think that's almost a misnomer, in fact. The fact is there is no such thing as a photo anymore. Taking a photo. They call it computational photography. A sensor pulls in a lot of data and then basically constructs a final product of a picture from all of that data. So yeah, I mean it is way beyond what even the most expensive SLRs used to do, in the pre-digital era. I mean, we're way beyond that. We're constructing reality essentially in our phones. How much longer before you could create a virtual reality world out of these photos?
We're already there. They're already talking about making these videos that they can just take a half a dozen pictures of you from different angles and recreate you. And the more pictures you have, the more accurate that recreation can become, at least visually. Right.
And then you combine that with deep fake, with if they have audio of your voice, which, now that I think about it, I've done enough podcasting. So we could probably deep fake me. They could construct a virtually indistinguishable avatar for you. I mean, it is kind of scary. I mean, just like from a different example, have you seen the new Microsoft Simulator 2020 that's coming out next year?
Haven't yet.
No, not yet.
It blows my mind. So what they've done is they've taken the satellite imagery of Bing, like just the really, really great satellite imagery, 2 petabytes of data, along with the Azure AI, Microsoft's Azure AI. So it does some server-side processing and creates the world. The world you fly through is nearly indistinguishable from reality. It is incredible, the images that, of course, in the demo, we'll see how it runs in real life. But the idea is, this is virtually a holodeck now. Yeah, we almost have this. So, I mean, from my point of view, I want to be safe. I'm a semi-public person. I do podcasts. I'm online, and I don't necessarily want everyone to see everything going on around, in the backgrounds of all my photos. I don't want people to be able to, track down my kids, that sort of thing. So it does worry me a little bit, and it makes me wonder, should there be a way to intentionally downgrade our photos before we post them?
I understand your concern. I think this is a concern for people who are in the public eye or semi in the public eye. But I think for maybe 85% of the rest of the world, they're taking their pictures, they're putting them on Facebook or Instagram. And for them, it's not a concern, because unless they've got a jealous ex or, somebody else who's willing to be an evil genius to do this, it's not going to be a concern for them. I think it should be a concern for the manufacturers to give some people that switch, to be able to dumb it down a little so that we can protect ourselves or protect our children. I think that falls on them.
I think that, yeah, I think there's merit to that. The thing I'm thinking about is what we could do. I remember back a few years ago when I was first was on Facebook, and I'd put pictures of my kids up online, or I'd take pictures of family events, and some of my siblings would be like, "Oh, I'm not sure I want you to put pictures of my kids online. I don't want weird people to see my kids' pictures." I'm like, "Oh, whatever. All right." I didn't. Now everybody puts everything online.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, nobody even thinks about it anymore.
Well, it's kind of funny. Just today, I was watching a video of a guy I like to watch. His name is Aging Wheels. He does a lot of car stuff on YouTube. And he gets like these really obscure cars, like a Trabant from East Germany and things like that.
Yeah.
Well, he did kind of a Q&A episode where, people asked him a bunch of questions. And so he had a picture of his girlfriend who didn't want to have her face on camera. So she put a box over her head. And then, it was still on camera with just the box over her head. So her face wouldn't be shown. And then they showed her 4-year-old son that they didn't want his face on camera. So they put the same box over his head and had him just stand there, but it's just kind of a laugh. But then at the same time, it's like, but that makes sense.
Right.
Again, to protect him a little bit, for churches, especially, but schools should as well. If you're going to post pictures online, you need to get permission from the family. Now, what we do, and I know a lot of churches and a lot of schools do, is basically it's an opt-out instead of an opt-in, where here, fill out this form to sign up for religious education. And if you don't want your kid's picture on Facebook, sign here or initial here. And I think last year we had one person do that. This year we haven't had anybody do that. So
yeah. Like Joanne said, like there are certain cases of family issues where I encountered when I worked in a parish where, there's the estrangement. I just don't want that person to know where we are or that sort of thing. And I'm okay with that. I mean, that's perfectly fine. But yeah, you're right. It's churches and schools have to be aware of people have these issues. They have these concerns. And so we don't put, we have to give people the ability to opt out. So much of life is online now. So much is just sort of, in the background, like how many people are taking selfies everywhere at all times or just taking pictures. Yep. I mean, think of how many pictures you're in from other people's vacation photos just in the background. Yeah. Think about it.
And you didn't plan to be there.
Exactly.
Well, it's interesting too, because I was just again kind of thinking about this, where there's a game online called GeoGuessr that uses Google Earth imagery, Google Maps Street View imagery, and you have to guess where you're at.
Oh, wow.
And so you got to use the street signs and the roads and everything, and guess where in the world. I mean, literally anywhere in the world you could be.
That sounds like fun.
It's not that far of a stretch of someone doing the same exact thing with your photo albums on Facebook. It's really not that much harder.
Yeah, I figure I figure that someone who sees my photos that I post could probably figure out where because I usually say we live south of Boston. That's where I live, south of Boston. So they could figure that much out. They might even be able to pinpoint the town. But honestly, I shouldn't say it, but my town has the property records online. You could go and look up, anybody, and so someone could find my house if they knew how to find those records. I mean, it's not that big of a stretch.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, how much privacy do we really have?
You can find anything online for a fee.
Yeah, well, this is frankly, it's free, which
it is free.
Yeah.
Well, state of Montana has what we call the cadastral maps, and that is the property maps.
Oh, wow.
And you can go online. You can give you the address, and you can go find anybody you want anywhere in the state of Montana if they have property. Now, like for example, you won't find me because I don't own any land.
Right.
But all you have to do is look for St. Mary's Catholic Church.
Right.
And you'll find it.
I'm easier to find still.
Yes. That is even
this is good for genealogists, but not for anybody else.
Right. Yeah. That's actually a big point. Is we weigh in both of these stories we talked about today. You weighing the positives and the negatives. Nothing is just one way or the other. Right. There are good things and bad things in each case, and like I like having beautiful, amazing photographs, and the new cameras and taking great photos. But I've just got. I think the bottom line is you got to be aware and you got to be smart. You got to think about it. Don't be paranoid. Don't go overboard. But just be smart and aware about things and know how things work. And maybe that's one of the things we should try to do is try to maybe in a future episode we'll talk about how to keep your photos from giving too much away about you online when you post them online. That would be a good future topic. We'll do that in the future. So let's move on to our third segment, and I want to talk about Google has a new phone. Father Corey, are you going to get the new Google Pixel 4?
It is already pre-ordered.
I figured as much.
I'm getting the 4XL with the 128 gig, the bigger storage. And the main reason I'm doing it is because, as I said just a couple of minutes ago, this Pixel, which has been a great phone, I have absolutely loved this phone for 3 years, but it's 3 years old. The battery is getting weak. You know, just using it for 15 minutes and I'll lose 10% of the battery charge. You know, and it's just, again, it's 3 years old. And unfortunately, this Pixel is one of these phones that, guess what? It's not easy to replace the battery.
Right.
You know, like a lot of Apple, Google has fallen into the same issue. So, yeah, I've got mine ordered because it looks really interesting.
What is the thing that you're most interested in this phone?
Honestly, the one thing that I'm really interested in what they're going to do with it is the radar.
Yeah, they talk about this. So tell us about the radar.
So this phone is going to have a device. I think they call it Project Solus or something like that. I can't remember exactly what they call it, but it's a chip that is a radar. It literally sits in the front bezel. And by the way, no notch. They went with the traditional bezel again. I'm glad about that. I'm glad with that. I don't like the notch. I'm sorry, the notch is ugly. I don't care if it's Apple or an Android device, but it's actually got a chip and it sits there. It's got about a 2-foot radius around the phone. And so it can detect when you're going to pick it up because it's not going to have fingerprint sensor. It's just going to have Face ID. Mm-hmm. But the difference is as I understand with Apple, you have to actually like hit the button or something to wake the phone up.
You just have to, when you pick up the phone, it wakes.
Right.
And then you do have to flick from the bottom to wake it. You do have to flick it.
What I've been seeing with the reports is what you do is as you reach for the phone, the radar picks up that you're reaching for it. It starts the wake process and you don't have to touch anything on the phone. So by the time you actually look at the phone, it's already awake.
Right. And it unlocks.
It's already unlocked.
It unlocks so fast that you don't even see a lock screen.
Yeah. I mean, there was a complaint from some of the Google developers that you actually you have a switch where you can make it go to a semi-lock screen, which I can understand that if there's a reason why you might not want Face ID to just completely unlock the phone.
Right.
But at least go to like the where you see your alerts or whatever, your messages or whatever, you know? So I could understand that. But, yeah, it's that sounds really interesting because it sounds like, if the phone's ringing, you can swipe over the phone to mute the phone instead of having to actually pick up the phone and hit the button.
Which
next track, previous track.
It's different from the Samsung, gestures because that uses cameras.
Correct.
And the camera has to interpret what it's seeing. Whereas with a radar, it just, it doesn't have to see your hand. It's sensing
just the motion across it. Yeah.
Right. I kind of like that idea. They call it motion sense. It's kind of an interesting idea.
Yeah, it sounds really interesting.
It's really interesting to me what these phone manufacturers are doing with these sensors that they're adding in. Like all these different sensors. The radar sensor. Apple's got a new what was the new sensor that they're talking about that they're going to be adding? There's a new another kind of sensor that's to kind of to experience the world around you. That these devices are going to be. It's more. We're moving from just what can the cameras see to what can it know? Almost like little tricorders in a sense of the world around them, and they'll understand the context that they're in, and that's I think a very interesting idea. You get that with NFC chips, you get that with the facial recognition camera, like the infrared cameras. Now we have these radar. I think it's a very interesting idea that we're moving into this realm where we're having these phones that can be aware of their context and aware of their environment.
Well, again, we talked about just a couple minutes ago about photography, where it's really not just a picture anymore. There's so much more depth to it. Well, the same thing too is, how many of us have watches that can tell what our heartbeat is, and the new Apple Watch doing EKGs and all these other, things that they can do.
Yeah.
But my concern would be security.
Right.
I mean, that's the big concern I'd have, because I don't mind swiping up, or I don't mind, waiting for the thing to recognize my face. If somebody else goes and picks it up.
No, it still requires a face unlock. No. So
yeah, but even if you're in the room, say you're trying to get the phone away from somebody else, and it unlocks because it sees your face. If it unlocks too fast.
Yeah,
that'd be the kind of concern I think deviously sometimes. So
and I wonder if it's, it would be designed in such a way where your face has to be so much of the image for so long.
Right.
It might still be too quick for you to see, but if you're pulling it up and, by the time you get to the point where you recognize that, you're looking at the phone and recognizing it, it's already seeing, your face is most of the image. And as you pull it closer to where you're comfortable with it, that's still, a second or so.
Right.
But it just takes our minds a little longer.
So how much of its visual does your face have to constitute? Well, this was a concern with Face ID before, right? That, someone could hold your phone up to your face while you're unconscious or asleep. So Apple has a setting where you could set it so that your eyes have to be open, which makes it slower in opening. But, and then before that was fingerprint recognition, that someone could just force you to put your finger on the sensor and it would unlock, which is why if you're really concerned about security, and anyone who's, like a spy or somebody, or, or a government official or something like that, if you're really concerned about this sort of thing, have a passcode is something that someone can't, get from you surreptitiously. If you put a long passcode.
I have a passcode on everything.
Right.
On top of.
Don't make your PIN 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Exactly.
Absolutely not. It's 09876.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But kind of going back to the Pixel 4, one another thing I'm kind of looking forward to is that they've said they've updated Google Assistant to make it much quicker to respond, which I'm really interested, because Google's pretty responsive to begin with. So, and I'm interested, and they're actually offlining some of it, where there'll be things that'll be, like you say, hey, G, show me my calendar, and it doesn't have to send to the Google server and come back.
Right.
It's offline, so it just immediately, there's your calendar.
On device rather than on server, which is what Apple does, which is why Siri isn't as good as Google Assistant.
But Google can use both of them, and so that's going to be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to that as well. And then the biggest thing that I'm really curious about is what it looks like is 90 megahertz or 90 kilohertz screen, refresh rate screen, instead of 60 like everything traditionally uses. So that could be interesting. So
with a very high pixel density. So
yes,
should be really interesting.
And I hear the camera's supposed to outdo the latest iPhone camera.
There's question about that. Whether it'll be equivalent or better. So it'll be. So in a week here, mine will be showing up, and next time I'm on here, I'll be able to talk about it.
All right. So we already have our topics for that for our next time we're the three of us together. Cord cutting and the new Google Pixel phones. That'll be really good. Awesome. Yep. So let's move on to our picks of the week. This is, I think, my favorite part of the show. I always have fun hearing what you guys have picked. And so, Father Corey, why don't we start with you? Okay,
so both Dom and I, we have Plex media servers, which are absolutely phenomenal ways. If you've got a good collection of movies and TV shows and podcasts that you listen to and all these things, you can pull them all into one place. You can, if you pay for the Plex Pass, you can watch them offline or, when you're on the road or whatever. They're wonderful. Well, one thing recent versions of Plex have allowed you to do is bring in live TV and DVR services. Again, you have to have the Plex Pass to do it, but I paid for the lifetime subscription, so I have it. I don't know if Dom does, but I definitely do and like it. and it's a wonderful thing. So I bought a really good little TV tuner because, of course, you got to have some way to get that satellite or that cable, or not, well, cable if you have basic cable or antenna. You have to get it into the computer. So I bought, it's by a company called Hauppauge. If you've done any kind of television capture, Hauppauge is a known company. They've been doing TV tuners and video capture cards forever. And they've got one. The one I bought was the WinTV Dual HD. It's a dual tuner. So you can do picture in picture if you're using the Windows app, their Windows app or whatever. But what this means for Plex is you could do it like a traditional DVR, where you could be recording one program while watching another, or recording two programs at the same time, if your server can handle it, of course. It's just a dongle. It's a dongle with a USB plug on one end and the screw-in coax cable on the other end. And you hook it up to your antenna, and it can go and find all the signals you need through Plex. And Plex has a TV guide where it can pull up what your listings are for each channels. There's a little caveat with that, but otherwise it works pretty well. I'm in a position where I pull from two different cities. We have translators from two different cities. So most of our channels come from the city of Great Falls, but one channel or one set of channels comes from Billings. It doesn't let you set two service areas. So I can only set the listing for Great Falls. I'm hoping they're going to fix this, or I can find a workaround. But other than that, to be able to go to the listing and say, okay, I want to watch the CBS Evening News, click the play button, and it brings it up live right off the antenna. Oh, I want to record, I would say Star Trek Discovery off of CBS, but they're not broadcasting it. What a shame. Drives me nuts.
Can I ask you a question, Father Corey? So you have to be, for this to work, you have to be running Plex on a Windows PC, correct?
Or Linux.
Oh, okay. All right.
So it does run on Linux. It is, and they say Plex, but basically it's supported, but there is a driver you can download for Linux. So Windows PC or Linux.
Okay. And Plex recognizes it when you plug it in. You just, it sees it.
You plug it in, as long as you do whatever updates you got to do for the Linux server, which of course it's a Linux server, so it's going to be little more than just plug and play. You're going to have to actually run a couple of commands that download the software, install it, and then you plug it in, you tell Plex, hey, search for it. It finds it. It took about 10-15 seconds for it to find it and configure it.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Plex is my next. Plex is next for me, I'll tell you.
It's so much fun. And again, if you're like me, where we're talking about cord cutting. Well, I've basically cut the cord. I have internet, and I haven't had cable in about 2 years. So it's all antenna or over the internet.
There are different products out there from different companies that will, if you have a Mac, that will work on a Mac too. I have Plex running on my Apple TV, so I'd have to figure out how I could make that work.
Now, is that the server? Yes. This is for the media server. This is not for the client.
The server is running on my Synology, so how would I...
Which is running what operating system? Probably a Linux.
It's probably a version of Linux, but it's the Synology operating system. There's a Synology NAS operating system. But I'm sure I'd have to look at the Synology site. Frankly, Synology has everything, so I would be surprised if it already has a way to do it. I'd have to take a look and see. That'd be interesting. Great. That's an excellent pick. Joanne, what's your pick this week?
My pick, I don't think I picked this before, but if I did, I'm revisiting it because now I've had it for a few months. It is the Hyperdrive Power 9-in-1 USB-C hub. And it can be used both for your MacBook Pros or your iPad Pros. And what I did was I wanted, Hyper has a lot of great products for USB-C hubs. And I was going to get the one that fit the iPad perfectly. But then I started thinking, I should look at the long term here, because the next laptop I get could be USB-C. It's probably more than likely going to be, or I could also use this for a phone later on down the line. So I got this one. It's one that connects. It's got a little bit longer. It's like what?
It's got a cable.
Yeah, right. It's got a cable.
Right,
But
as opposed to
it,
directly, yeah.
right, but what it houses is 3 USB-A's 3.0. You get the HDMI port, you get the gigabit Ethernet, you get the lovely 3.5 millimeter audio jack because those things are losing it now.
Right.
And of course, you get the USB-C power, power through, and then you get a micro SD and an SD card reader. I'll tell you, with my iPad Pro, this is turning it into the computer, the laptop that I could use more so than my laptop. It gives me that ability at work to tie everything in. I'm going in late today, for example, and don't want to take the whole computer with me because I'm going to a meeting also. I'm going to be able to go to my office, stick it on my monitor, and use it with my keyboard and be able to do some work before my meeting. That means I don't have to schlep everything with me tonight.
This will work with a USB keyboard?
Yeah, that's the bridge that I talked about last time. So I'm getting all these things and trying to see if this iPad Pro 2018 can be a laptop.
Have you tried connecting a regular desktop keyboard into it? Does that work?
Probably. I can try it today and report back.
Yeah, let me know.
I do have the one in my office is a Bluetooth.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
which would work.
Right.
Yep.
But I'll tell you, for the price, and right now it's $79.99. It's normally $99. If you're getting those USB-C products, this is a handy little thing to have, and it's very small, takes up very little space, but does it connects most of the things you need.
Yeah.
I might be getting myself replacing my iPad Pro soon. So I'll be passing that down to my daughter who needs a computer, and maybe getting one of the new ones. I've been holding out thinking that Apple might be having an event this month. It looks like they're not going to, and that they won't have new ones until
next year.
Yeah, and I don't know that I want to wait till the spring. Even though once the new ones come out, I'll be like, oh, I want that. But
the beauty of this hub, it can be used on almost anything. So it's
anything with a USB-C.
Small hub.
Yeah,
right. It's a good small hub used with USB-C.
Yeah. See, I've got their dock for my older MacBook Pro. This is the one before they brought out the Touch Bar, and it just clamps right on the outside of it. And it's great. Their stuff is good.
Yeah.
Their stuff is very, very good. I've had absolutely no complaints with this thing whatsoever.
Yeah.
So I can imagine this little hub would be just as awesome. And of course, as they say, it's not just for Macs.
Right.
This could work on Android. This could work on Windows machines that have USB-C.
Yep.
So,
yeah, they even showed on their site connected to an Android phone, which is
and
very
some of us are still using SD cards. And if they keep taking away the SD card readers,
well, some people
and
still
headphones.
have
and headphones.
Yes, headphones. Very good. Well, it looks like an all hardware picks of the week this week because mine is also hardware. I have picked this one, which is the from APC. You may know APC as a American Power Company, I think they called it. APC does surge protectors and the battery backup systems, UPS systems, that sort of thing. Well, they have a new product called the APC Smart Plug Surge Protector Power Strip. And what makes this interesting is it has 6 outlets and 6 USB ports. 3 of the outlets and 2 of the USB ports are smart in the sense of that they can be controlled by your Amazon Echo devices. Or you can program them in the APC app that you can download for your phone and set timers and schedules on them. And this has been a real neat thing for me. So what I use it for, I have this one in my bedroom. I like to have a fan on at night, but I don't want the fan to come on. Sometimes I have to climb over the bed to get to the fan because it's on the other side, that sort of thing. And it's such a pain. And then when I get up in the morning, my wife, she doesn't want the fan to stay on, and so she wants to. So what I have it on a schedule. It comes on at a particular time at night. It goes off at a particular time in the morning every day. And so what it does is it allows you to schedule, or I could right now say to my Echo, turn on the fan or turn off the fan. Say we've left the room, both of us have left the room and the fan's on, we turn on it manually. It's like, oh, hey, Echo, turn off the fan, and we'll turn it off. So you have 3 outlets, 3 regular plug outlets, and 2 USB ports that you can control with your voice. It's a little pricey, but it's $50. But frankly, yes, you can buy cheaper surge protectors, but don't buy cheap surge protectors.
Yeah.
You're protecting thousands of dollars worth of electronics in many cases. You should probably spend a few bucks on a surge protector that will actually protect your equipment.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Honestly, I'm kind of surprised it's taking this long for this to come out for a smart plugs surge suppressor. Because I mean, the smart plugs have been around for a while, for a couple of years now. But an actual surge suppressor that has it built in. That's kind of surprising.
That is surprising. It doesn't work with HomeKit. That's the downside. But a lot of things, it's just that they don't work with everything. So I wish it did. And the app is not the greatest. It's just it's okay. But I like the outlet. What were you going to say, Joanne?
I was going to say, do they have this in a wall mount version? Where you can just plug it into the. You mean
like
outlet?
Like replace?
Yeah.
No, they don't have like one that can just like plug in and hang on the wall yet. At least I don't think so. I haven't seen one yet. Frankly, it's hard to find. APC is one of those companies that have really bad naming conventions for their products, so it's hard to actually find them. I'll have the link in our show notes so that you can click through.
Because I happen to have APC wall mounts, but I never saw the smart outlets.
Yeah.
Right.
I'll have to. I'll look and see if they have the wall mounted one, so that they're just kind of hang off of the outlet on the wall. I do like that in certain places in my house. But that would be
helpful.
Yeah. So the other thing is that they have LEDs on it on the surge protector, and my wife has issues with any kind of light when she's sleeping. So I've had to put gaffer tape over all the LEDs. But that's just my situation. So your mileage may vary. All right. So those are our picks of the week, and they're good ones, I think, this week. We do want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the secrets of technology, including Drew M, Matt L, Joe D, Marissa F, and Marshall B. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to create and continue the secrets of technology and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of our topics that we discussed this week? You can let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia. Or send us an email to technology@sqpn.com. You can find all the links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at sqpn.com. Please, folks, if you can, I really would appreciate if you would go to Apple Podcasts or one of the podcast directories where you get the podcast, and first share the podcast with your friends to help us grow and reach a larger community of technology users and people who'd be interested in this sort of content. But also to write a review. Your reviews on these directories are more important than you realize. Even if you could just write a sentence or two and give us a nice 5-star review, we'd so greatly appreciate that. And that really makes a huge difference. Like I said, more than you know. So until next time, Father Corey Stika, thank you for joining me and sharing the secrets of technology.
Glad to be here, and thank you both.
And Joanne Mercier, thank you as well.
Thank you. A pleasure as always.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.